Episode 7 of Chapelwaite was a real boondoggle. Drew here, and this show is really heating up as it heads towards the climax of the series. It has finally gotten to the point where Charles has found Vermis Mysteriis, the book that has been the MacGuffin the whole series. We finally find out more or less why Jacob wants it, as Charles has this series of visions where he sees that it will usher in a world without day, and that vampires will be able to rule and to bring in the god that they serve if they get this book and take it from him. So the stakes are obviously nothing less than the fate of the entire world. I feel like this is a little bit of a mistake in my opinion. I think when you make the stakes so high, it kind of detracts from the more personal stakes. It's a problem I've had with pretty much every superhero movie for the last 10 years. But mileage will vary on this, obviously. This episode, it was very, very good at establishing a sense of dread as we see the approaching army of vampires led by Jacob and Apple Girl. And I feel that we got to see two sides of Charles Boone. We got to see him slowly, or not so slowly, descending into madness as he finally finds Vermis Mysteriis, as I mentioned, and the painful side of trying to hold the book and not turn it over to the vampires very, very quickly causes him to want to kill his children, very similarly to how his father tried to kill him in the opening scene of the first episode. And I have to say, with this, obviously there's been a lot of Shining vibes with the character and his struggles over the course of the season. In one of the early episodes, he just about took off one of his own children's head with an axe. So you can definitely see the evocation of the Shining in this parent's fear of hurting his own children. That said, I do feel that there has been a little bit of a flaw, not so much in the writing, but in Adrien Brody's performance, because I feel that he's been acting so on the verge of insanity from the beginning that there wasn't really a lot of room for him to escalate his performance this episode. I don't think the acting from him was bad this episode, but there were moments where I feel that the writing was really the thing making him and his character chilling more than the performance, because he's acting more or less the same way that the character has been acting the entire season. The moment where she's in the basement and the realization of just how much he is under the influence of the Vermis Mysteriis and how much it's driving him insane, and the fact that he intends to kill her and the children to protect them, her dawning realization and horror on her face was a very strong moment. Now, I do think that there's going to be more of this, because surely that can't be the end of it. She just whacks him on the head and he wakes up, and they've kind of jumped forward quite a bit to the point where, you know, they've come up with this solution that the book is with Constable Dennison's wife. And apparently, you know, once they return the book to the vampires, the Boones will stop going insane. Now, I feel that it's kind of a funny thing that Charles gets whacked on the head quite forcefully, and you'd think it would be a blow hard enough to kill a person, but then the rest of the episode we see the other side of Charles Boone, which is his man of action. As you know, he was a whaler and a captain of a vessel at sea, so of course he has the ability to command men and to enact plans. You would think that getting whacked so hard on the head would kind of lay him out a bit longer and prohibit him from being so able to lay out all these plans, but apparently he's none the worse for the wear, despite having been knocked completely unconscious for a number of hours by this blow from Rebecca. Now, I do feel there was a bit of a wasted opportunity here, because the emphasis throughout this story has been on his fear that he's going to harm his children the way that his father almost harmed him. So To me, the fact that the emphasis was on the fear that he was instilling in Rebecca was a bit of a missed opportunity. There was a moment where Rebecca goes to Honor and tells her, "We need to leave. Your father is going to harm us all." And Honor seems to discredit this. And then a moment later, both her and Tane seem to have fully bought into the idea that their father might harm them, but they don't show the moment that convinced them of this. They cut, from him driving the horses away and Rebecca's increasing anxiety and concern to the children being like, "Is he gonna hurt us? We need to get out of here." And to me, that was a missed opportunity. I would have put at least a little bit of emphasis on the children's reaction. I think they should have shown the moment when the children realized that not all was well with their father. Otherwise, this episode, it created a strong sense of dread at the approaching vampires. The moment when Jacob realizes that Charles has found the book, when the birds go flying through the trees ominously, and just the overall weather of this episode, I think, contributed to this sense of dread. It kind of reminds me in some ways of an old Western like High Noon, where you have the approaching villains and the main characters holding up to face them down. I like that the town characters that we've grown to kind of know, Constable Dennison and Minister Burroughs, both are now in the house with them, along with Mary Dennison, who obviously has been turned into a vampire. There were some odd moments this episode. So Charles clearly spends a lot of this episode coming up with a plan to kill vampires with Constable Dennison and the other people in his house, so that when Stephen and Philip show up, they're ready to harpoon him, drag him inside, and decapitate him. And I liked how this didn't go down perfectly. Like, it was a kind of a prolonged scene where there were moments where things definitely did not go according to plan, but ultimately they were able to successfully kill Philip. And I have to say, this character kind of felt like a throwaway vampire, despite the fact that he's, the father of Stephen. They never gave him many lines. He would generally just be like a hissing, malevolent presence more than a character. And, I think his death, obviously, it was kind of a sweet moment of revenge in some ways for Charles, as he finally gets to enact violence against these vampires who have taken his daughter from him. And it's going to obviously motivate Stephen going into the final stretch. That moment was undercut by the fact that the entire horde of Jacob and his followers show up just moments later, and you realize that Charles's plan may not have been the best one, but it's going to be pretty darn hard for them to hold off this many vampires without the protection of plot armor, that is. It was funny to me, though, that Abel did not really participate in the killing of Philip, but the minute that they see all these vampires gathered, or they realize that there's all these vampires gathered, Charles is like, "Abel, go get help from the town," which, of course, this isn't going to work out. The town's not going to come to help. But it was funny to me that they've had all day to prepare for this, and yet he didn't send for help from the town until this moment. Otherwise, this episode, I think that the visions of the world that Jacob will usher in with the Vermis Mysteries, I liked the visual style of these, the red ambiance. It was very, very chilling. The music, the sound design, the close-ups, the very, very intense acting from Adrien Brody. It was very, very well directed, I felt, and it really, really captured the sense of dread at what would come if Jacob is to get a hold of the Vermis Mysteries. I'm kind of surprised they didn't have Charles find the Vermis Mysteries at the end of the last episode, because it would have been a better cliffhanger, I feel, to have him just open the casket and find the book. I think that would have been a stronger creative choice. I felt that the moment when Faith Pringle's body was sent into town dead on the carriage, to me the moment didn't make a ton of sense, because I don't think that the vampires would have tipped their hand so forcefully yet. But it was also like, why on earth is Minister Burroughs' father-in-law whacking him and reaming him in front of the entire town when there's a dead woman there. I feel that this was kind of a heavy-handed moment, like they're trying to show what a horrible, judgmental, religious person this is. But I just don't think that a real person would do that. There's a dead woman there who's been murdered. Are you really going to go after your son-in-law for cheating at that moment? And the fact that the town just kind of sat by and watched him do it. I get it. They're trying to show that the town is controlled by bigotry and their judgment of the moral failings of others. But nonetheless, I felt that this moment rang false, personally. We also saw the death of Mrs. Cloris, who finally takes a stand against Stephen and Philip, only to be killed immediately. Again, I feel that this show has kind of wasted some characters, but I do feel that it's good that they actually are not holding back with the character deaths in a lot of instances, that they have these characters that you might think would serve more purpose in the story, but that they're dead, and at the very least it makes you feel that the vampires are a real threat to the main characters. So I'm definitely excited to see where the last 3 episodes of Chapelwaite go. I don't know that these are going to be the best episodes of this season. I feel like the atmospheric qualities of the previous episodes might be lacking here, but we're definitely setting up a finale that seems very reminiscent of Salem's Lot, even though obviously there are a lot of differences between these stories. But I do feel that it will definitely be the bloodiest part of this season. So those are my thoughts on episode 7 of Chapelwaite, for what my thoughts are worth. If you're interested in seeing my upcoming reviews of this show and other shows, please consider subscribing. And as always, thank you for watching.